achieved.
So we're coming off an event, massive title fight. Max Holloway appeared to do enough. It was, it wasn't. I've used the word robbery before. I don't know if I was pretty upset at the time. I will say it was a close fight. I thought Max won. I think most people thought Max won. I know Dana White thought Max won, and 2 of the 3 judges did not. And I'm not sure how we fix it. It's just one of those fights where it was close. I hate the premise that you have to quote-unquote beat the champion. No, that's not the way it works. The belt goes on the line, 2 fighters step in the cage, we have a set of rules, and if one fighter wins that fight, whether it be by inches or miles, they leave with the belt. None of this garbage where it's like, oh, the other fighter probably did more, but because the champion's the champion, he gets the nod. That's bullshit. That's not the case. It shouldn't be like that. And this idea of you can't leave it to the judges, no, you should be able to leave it to the judges. They have a job to do. And we saw it earlier with Salikov and Dos Santos. I thought Dos Santos won all 3 rounds. Very well, he should have won 2 at the very least. And instead we saw 30-27, which was atrocious. I could defend 29-28 for Salikov, but 31-27 is indefensible. And it's like, you should be able to leave it to the judges because they're professionals. They should be able to do their job just like everyone else does their job. And it seems like some of the judges want to be nuanced or edgy and see a fight from an angle that most people won't see and say, look, I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I know how this is going to go. I know how everyone thinks this is going to go, and I'm going to tell you different. And I think sometimes that's one of the issues, but I was embarrassed by that fight. I was and disappointed. And it puts Max in a tough spot. He's 0-2 now against the champion, and there's some interesting fights out there in that division. A lot of interesting fights, and we'll see if Max can get back in there and if they will, set up another match between him and Volkanovski down the road, or how many fights he has to win to get back there, or if the belt changes hands at any point in time. That's certainly not a foregone conclusion. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking in the upcoming UFC Fight Night 172 on July 19th from Abu Dhabi. We will once again get a rematch. We will crown a new flyweight champion as Deiveson Figueiredo and Joseph Benavidez run it back for the second time. Last time, of course, a little controversial with Figueiredo missing weight, winning by knockout, the headbutt involved. We get a second installment of that. 5 really awesome main card fights. All of my preliminary picks available at kamikazeoverdrive.net, so please check them out there. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. The bet packs will also be for sale. As I said, I'm winding down my channel, so we are getting close to the end of my tenure. A couple events left. I think this will be I got 2 events left after this one, if I remember correctly. This, of course, is the end of a 3-show, 8-day run with the UFC, where it's been kind of mad here in Abu Dhabi. So either way, lots of fun, craziness. And we got 5 really awesome fights, including a really cool co-main event as well between Jack Hermansson and Kelvin Gastelum. Let's get to our first main card prediction. The opening fight of the night goes down in the UFC's flyweight division as the 22-4 Brazilian Alexandre Pantoja takes in the undefeated 11-0-1 Russian Askarov. Currently, Askarov is the underdog at +170. Pantoja, the turnaround at -200. Now, Pantoja has been tabbed to fight in the title fight if Figueiredo misses weight. There was the COVID issue. Possibly Benavidez gets taken out with COVID, or maybe Benavidez misses weight, which I don't think will happen. They want to crown a flyweight champion, so Pantoja, as far as I've been told, will get the bump up if that happens. Is that a bit of a distraction? We don't know, quite possibly, but hey, he's a professional. He'll work his way through it, and he'll know before, obviously, well in advance, whether he's in that position or not. Now, looking at Pantoja, he's an Ultimate Fighter veteran, 6-2 in the UFC. He has already lost to Figueiredo in a very entertaining bout. He also lost to Dustin Ortiz. He's coming off a finish over Matt Schnell, also finished Wilson Hayes by TKO. Has some solid submission wins on his resume as well. Now, for Askarov, he debuted with a draw against Moreno. He beat Tim Elliott most recently in his last fight. He's undefeated overall with a pretty decent record on the regional scene, top to bottom. Physically, Askarov 1 inch taller, though, of the same reach. Askarov is the younger man by 2 years. Now, when you look at the Russian first, he had finishes in all 10 of his fights prior to coming to the UFC. 3 knockouts, 7 submissions. Then he goes into Mexico and earns a draw against Moreno in enemy territory, and the decision win. So obviously that step up in competition certainly is noticeable with his results. When he fought Moreno, he had a big takedown early. He's a guy who's going to look for takedowns. It was a good scramble back and forth. Overall, he's a pretty good scrambler. He will attack submissions off his back if he gets put in that position. He did lose the position against Moreno, who's also pretty good on the ground. But we saw Askarov continue to work. He wasn't backed off by what Moreno's capable of doing on the mat. He'll grab a single leg or a body lock, put his opponent down. He will reach a little bit for his takedowns, but again, he's fairly confident once he reaches, he can get in there and get his hands on his opponent and get them down. I do like the way he rotates to his opponent's back along the cage. And he'll hold you there as well and just land some short knees and punches as well, which is a good technique if you can't get the takedown, soften and break your opponent up. That being said, Moreno flipped the script on him, took him down in the third round. There could be some questions about the fatigue at elevation could have impacted Askarov, but Moreno was able to get him down, had some moments, and got back in that fight, and that's why you're in the draw. We saw some good takedowns by Tim Elliott tried to take him down with a traditional shot, and just generally speaking, Askarov showed good hips and was able to stay vertical. But later in the fight, Elliott used multiple throws to put him down and took Askarov on his mat on his back on multiple occasions. But Askarov was able to attack right away and usually got back up, made it very uncomfortable. We saw Elliott had some momentary success, but ultimately it wasn't a huge advantage for Elliott. On the feet, Askar throws some pretty good short-range strikes. He's a nice right jab, hard straight left. When he mixes in his uppercut and just throws in combinations, he is very effective and just very linear to the point with some good impact. He has some nice low kicks and high kicks he'll mix in. He hurt Elliott bad with a nice combination that it looked like it knocked Elliott on the feet when he came back around. He was also wobbled by Moreno on a couple of occasions, but again, that could have been fatigue-related as well. And when you look at the Elliott fight, his cardio looked fairly good. He wasn't breathing hard despite Elliott pushing a pretty high pace and trying to walk him down at the end of the fight. Askarov was backing up, but he was still landing good strikes and winning the fight overall. Now, for Alexandre Pantoja, I'm probably saying that wrong, he's a solid striker. He throws good straight punches. He'll work in some low and body kicks as well. He's dropped Wilson Hayes with a long right hand very effectively. But when he fought Figueiredo, who's just a heavier, more effective striker, he was eating some big strikes. And he was still pressing forward and willing to sit down his punches and engage, but he was getting busted up. He's durable and aggressive, but he eventually put down. There's only so much you can take when big power is coming back that way. When he took out Matt Schnell again, he flurried and eventually overwhelmed him in a barrage on the feet, put him down, he eventually got the finish, knocked him out, which was relatively impressive, and just overall a good performance by Pantoja. Now, on the flip side of things, Pantoja also very effective on the ground. But at the same time, when you look at his fights, he has given up a combined 9 takedowns in his 2 UFC defeats, and over 8 fights, he's given up 16 takedowns and landed just 6. So there's certainly a problem there. He is a good scrambler. He's pretty solid at getting back up. He gets his back to the cage fairly well to get back up, but it's not ideal to give up big takedown numbers. And when you start giving up takedowns in the 3s, 4s, and 5s, all of a sudden, boom, you're in a position where you got to really push the pace and the feet to make up that distance, and that's concerning. Pantoja does a good job working in the clinch, and he'll rotate his opponent's back, which could be an ideal scenario here because it seems like Askarov might be more vulnerable to the non-traditional shots, like throws, like trying to body lock takedowns, trying to pull you down from the back control standing. That might be the best opportunity for Pantoja to get this fight down. Either way, this should be a very entertaining scrap, both on the feet and the mat, wherever it plays out. Askar's a little more linear with his striking. He takes less risk. He's a little more defensively sound, and he really throws some nice straight offense. I like that, and there's pop on them. I think Askarov's going to land a few takedowns, as we talked about, which are going to score points in a key fight. He might get some solid top control. Again, Pantoja's no slouch, but Askarov on top is not someone you want there, as we saw with Moreno. And when you figure that into the fact that I think Pantoja is going to flurry and throw big barrages, and he's going to eat some strikes coming the other way, even if the striking is close on the feet, I think the takedowns weigh significantly, and my prediction in a bit of an upset is Askarov to defeat Alexandre Pantoja by decision. Fight number 2 in the main card goes down to the women's flyweight division as Ariane Lipski, 12-5-0, takes on the 6-1 Luana Carolina of Brazil. Actually, both girls fighting out of Brazil, I believe. If I'm wrong, correct me, as I know most people will. Yes, I believe. Yes, the Violence Queen also from Brazil. The current odds, relatively close when you look at this matchup. Lipski, the slight favorite at -125. Carolina at +100. Now, Lipski's coming off Her first UFC win after losses to Molly McCann and Joanne Calderwood in her first 2 fights. She beat Isabella de Puada in a pretty fun back-and-forth bout, with de Puada coming in on very short notice. For Carolina, she debuted with a win over Priscilla Cachoeira by decision. She has won 6 in a row since losing her pro debut. She also won a fighter in the Contender Series. Now, these girls have a couple common opponents, namely Tapada. I'm probably saying that wrong. Both have wins over her. Carolina submitting her very early in her career. They also lost to a similar opponent as well on the regional scene. Physically, both girls 5'6", 2-inch reach advantage for Carolina. Lipski is the younger fighter by a year, but Carolina has been out of action for 14 months. Now, looking at Luana first, she's fought some low-level competition on the regional scene. At least her last 3 fights before going to the Contender Series, her 3 components were combined 2 and 4. That's not awesome. But in her UFC debut, she put up in a very impressive 111 significant strikes, but against a very defensively weak opponent. Cachoeira is the type of girl who just comes forward and just keeps engaging. Her hands are at her sides, weird angles. Each shot's looking for that home run knockout. And she really wouldn't be in the UFC if she wasn't picking up that big win over Dobson, a big knockout over Dobson that kind of kept her around. Carolina was throwing a left jab relatively, effectively with a nice wide hook around after that. She threw a left head kick that dropped Cachoeira as well, and she mixed a spinning back fist once in a while. Lots of lateral movement, which was kind of because Cachoeira was moving forward so aggressively and just forcing Carolina to try and figure out some way to get her off her. I did like the way she grabbed the tie clinch and landed a quick knee strike every time her opponent moved in. That was an effective technique. Defensively, she leaves her head very high, and her chin is sitting right there as well. And she's, as a taller girl, that's concerning against a big hitter. She usually reacts to her opponent's takedown. And if she gets tired from moving away so much, as we didn't see very much in that fight, that could be problematic. If that chin is still sitting up there, the target is there, and that's concerning. That being said, she actually seemed to settle in fairly nicely in rounds 2 and 3, so despite a lot of movement, her cardio seemed to hold up. She's got a good grappling game, not great takedowns, usually reacts to her opponent's takedowns, or even gets, as we saw in this fight, gets a knockdown to get on top. So she's not going to come in and blast a double leg, as we see, but hey, if she can create a scramble and get in a position on the mat to get her grappling game going, that's certainly beneficial for her. Now, Lipski, she came with a lot of hype. She's kind of lost a little bit of it, and people are still looking for her to kind of pick up the pace here. She comes from a kickboxing background. She has, as expected, a pretty good kicking attack. Her volume's been decent so far in the UFC. She's coming off this type of fight where it only says she landed 31 significant strikes, but upon further review, she actually landed 175 total strikes, which is pretty good output. Lipski came forward in her last fight pretty aggressively, sat down in her punches, and dropped her opponent early. She just sat down and said, I'm going for it here. She threw good barrages, 3-4 hooks in range. She's got a decent jab, her high kicks there as well, and she's relatively quick and very aggressive. When she fought McCann, she was throwing some nice straight punch combinations to counter McCann every time she stepped into range. Lipski was just firing back and clipping her at times. But she conversely was dropped by Molly in that fight and was eating some big punches throughout that bout. Now, one of her problems has been she struggled with wrestling. Her opponents have 5 takedowns over her 3 UFC fights, and that is a concern. She was taken in a couple times by McCann, especially at the end of rounds that cost her in a fight that she wasn't winning, but she certainly wasn't getting blown out of the barn until those takedowns transpired. She held top position in her last fight, but the scramble resulted in her getting put on her back. When her opponent tried to take her down at times, she showed pretty good hips and is able to transition to a better position. From top control, once she gets there, she's not bad in that spot. And she can put some offense up, not overwhelming, but certainly do some damage. Look for her to try and defend and pass and try and just maintain a good spot in the top position. And that's something she'll be looking for here. Now, if Carolina was able to wrestle more effectively and land takedowns, she has a clear avenue to victory here. Lipski needs to be very mindful of trying to take her down if she does look for that route. That might give Carolina some opportunity to grapple her. She could look for a takedown or two. I wouldn't be shocked, but I think it's not the best avenue for her. Carolina tends to let her opponents push forward, leaves her chin and head exposed. She will counter-strike, but it's not a great look when she's constantly moving back. Lipski should be able to press forward, but with more success, more variety, and more volume than Cachoeira did, and at the same time not maybe eat as many shots that helped Carolina win that fight. Look for those barrages for Lipski to really do a number on Carolina and really get her the better of the exchanges. And again, if Carolina is constantly backing up, that's not going to look good either. And my prediction is Ariane Lipski to defeat Luana Carolina by decision. The midway mark fight is a pretty solid lightweight scrap as we feature the 14-3 Marc Diakiese taking on the 7-1 Rafael Fiziev or Fiziev. I've heard it pronounced both ways. We'll see how badly I can butcher it throughout the fight. And, of course, me being super prepared, I closed my window that had my betting odds in it, so bear with me for a moment while I pull it back up. I'm actually watching the UFC on ESPN 13 event. I just saw John Phillips absolutely get steamrolled by Khamzat Chimaev, just smoked on the mat and submitted. Back to the matter at hand. Currently looking at the odds, Diakiese, the favorite, at -170, Fiziev at +140. The underdog. Now, Diakiese is experiencing a bit of a rebirth. He started his UFC career 3-0 and off to a pretty good start. He then lost 3 consecutive fights and appeared to be slipping, but he has since won 2 more against pretty good opponents in Joseph Duffy and Lando Venata to get back on track and look good in both those matchups. For Fiziev, he lost a very tough debut against Magomed Mustafayev, an 82nd TKO defeat, spinning back fist or wheel kick. Spinning back wheel kick is what it was. His first loss of his career, but he rallied with a win over Alex White next time out. A pretty impressive performance. For Diakiese, 2 inches taller with a 2-inch reach advantage. And Diakiese is a grand total of 11 days older than Fiziev in this matchup, so very interesting there. Now, for White, that was the first time Fiziev's ever gone the distance, and he looked very good doing it. Previously, 5 of 6 wins had come by knockout, 6 finishes in the first round. So very cool there, a solid finisher. He comes from a Muay Thai background. He's got an extensive amateur career. He's one of the coaches, a striking coach at Tiger Muay Thai. He switches stances effortlessly. He throws exceptionally hard low kicks. He's got a nice leaping left hook and a very hard right overall. He will throw some spinning attacks. And look from he does a really nice job of when his opponent gets pinned on the cage, that's when he explodes and unloads combinations when he knows their movement is limited. And he'll rip to the body, and it's a very effective way to do it. Good knees and elbows in close in the clinch, and he'll throw them on the break as well. When you think you're getting out of danger, he'll crack you one more time. That being said, Alex White was tagging when he pushed forward a couple times. He was hit with that spinning back kick from Mustafayev. It was actually the second time he was clipped from it in 86 seconds. So he actually saw it the first time. It caught him, but not flush. The second time is what put him down. Defensively, solid takedown defense. He does a good job of sprawling, getting his hips back. He'll use a headlock and start throwing some knees and elbows in that position once he's got you defended. He did land some takedowns, but you could use that here in this fight if he opts to go that route. His cardio overall looks pretty good. In his last fight, he was pushing forward, still engaging in round 3, didn't appear to slow down, and just dictating the pace. But he was the one dictating the pace. How does that work if he's unable to control that manner of the fight? Now for Diakiese, he absolutely has power. 6 wins by knockout, 2 in the UFC. Cardio for him has been a bit of a question mark, but he's looked much better in his last 2 fights. That being said, when you look at his last 2 fights, 40 and 63 significant strikes landed. Not huge, but what he has done to make that better is he's avoided a lot of the offense coming back the other way. He's limited his 2 opponents to 15 and 25 strikes respectively. Very impressive. When you go back to his last loss against Haqparast, he landed 59 strikes, good work, but he gave up 93. He got beaten up pillar to post in that fight. He's not a high-volume striker. He's a quality over quantity type striker. He's got a good left jab. He steps into it and covers a lot of distance, a lot more than you expect him to. He's got a solid front kick, hard body strikes, and he's got a lead uppercut that he'll do some damage with, especially if you don't anticipate it. Now, going back to that Haqparast fight, Haqparast was pushing forward constantly, had Diakiese pinned on the cage and stuck backwards, and Diakiese was pushing forward in short bursts, but he couldn't keep Haqparast off him, and he couldn't match his volume, he couldn't match his pace, he couldn't do anything to get his respect, and that was problematic, and that's something he cannot afford to do. I like his kicks. He's got an excellent calf kick. He landed early against Lando Venata, hurt him. It really allowed Diakiese to really dictate the pace, but in that fight, Lando fought very cautiously, and maybe he respected the speed and the power, and that's absolutely a factor. But Lando allowed Diakiese to sit at range, land his strikes, set up his offense, land, no real pressure. It was a very casual fight, not a casual fight, but just a very shot-for-shot fight, and Diakiese was getting the better of it in most exchanges. Diakiese, overall, he's fast, he's powerful, and he's talented, but he needs time and space to set up his strikes. Fiziev is very aggressive. He pushes a strong pace, and he's going to limit Diakiese's opportunities to land that. So unless Diakiese can find a way to back him off and do it consistently, not one jab or one shot or kick and then wait for the opportunity, Fiziev's just going to keep coming forward. The chin of Fiziev, is it bulletproof? Absolutely not. Can Diakiese take him out of there? It's not. Diakiese's the type of guy, he lands flush, he can put anybody down, but I think he needs a knockout in this fight, or at the very least, he needs to hurt him a couple of times and really get his respect and get him backed up. The other route we could see Marc go is the takedowns. I don't know if that's a good move, especially if he goes for him, doesn't get him, starts to tire. I think those are all very tough or unlikely scenarios. Look for the pressure, volume, and overall impact of Fiziev's offense to really be the key. I think it'll be a very entertaining first round. I think Diakiese starts to slow down as the fight advances, and I think eventually Rafael Fiziev gets him out of there. And my prediction is Rafael Fiziev to defeat Marc Diakiese by TKO. We are now in the co-main event of the evening. Former title challenger and Ultimate Fighter winner, the 15-5 Kelvin Gastelum takes on the Joker, the 20-5 Jack Hermansson. Now the odds fairly close in this one. Hermansson a slight underdog at plus 100. Gastelum the turnaround at minus 125 as the favorite. Now Gastelum has lost back-to-back fights, including that decision win against Israel Adesanya, the crowned Adesanya, the interim champion at the time. He also had a split decision loss against Darren Till. Prior to that, he only had one loss in 6 fights, so he put together a pretty good run. For Hermansson, he had won 4 in a row, 6 of 7, and then got TKO'd by Jerry Canyon that kind of derailed him for a bit. Win here gets him right back on track. He beat Jacare, he beat Branch, he beat Mearshart, he beat Ladies. That's a solid name of victories, solid name of fighters to overcome. Physically, Hermansson 4 inches taller, of a 6-inch reach advantage. Gastelum is the younger man by 3 years. Gastelum being a guy who's probably more suited to be at welterweight. But ultimately, this is what we're looking at here. He's going to be a middleweight, and he's going to have to overcome these issues, and he tends to deal with them fairly well. Now, Hermansson's rise to prominence has come largely when he started focusing on his takedowns and ground and pound. He came into the UFC as a guy who was built around his striking with movement and decent volume. And then he just turned into this guy who's going to wrestle you. He has scored takedowns in each of his UFC wins, that includes against Jacare. He combines those takedowns with volume. And when he fought Jacare, he took Jacare down 3 times, landed 148 significant strikes, very impressively. He ran over another very good ground fighter in Gerald Mearshart, landed 1 takedown, strikes 41-1, and then submitted him. Just complete wipeout. Very impressive. He lands takedowns from the body lock. He's not a great wrestler. He's going to shoot in, blast a double, or pick up a nice single. But he's going to rush you. He's going to get in and get his hands on you, maybe a body lock, overwhelm you, drag you to the mat, and then go to work. It's not going to be pretty, but it's going to be effective. Now, here's where the problem arose. When he fought Jared Cannonier, he couldn't take him down. He eventually got him down with a suplex, and tried to take his back, but he couldn't keep him down. He couldn't control him, and he couldn't get in a position to land that ground and pound. That is absolutely problematic. Now, Hermansson, after those takedowns were faltered and didn't work, he looked hesitant to engage, didn't feel as confident, didn't press forward. The power of Cannonier started to create issues. He got caught with an uppercut and dropped and ground and pounded the finish. And he's been finished in 4 of his 5 losses, which certainly raises some questions. Is he the type of guy where if he gets put in some tough spots, is he going to falter? You go back to the Talis' latest fight, he battled his way through a tough fight and ultimately got the finish. But it's still a little bit concerning how things are going to play out here. Now, for Gastelum, the guy's a jiu-jitsu black belt, has a solid wrestling background, 62% takedown defense. He has been taken down, though. Till took him down once. Jacare took him down once. He's not easy to take down. He's not easy to keep down. That being said, Chris Weidman had a hell of a lot of success. 7 takedowns eventually. Finished him on the mat. But Weidman is a very big fighter with a strongly credentialed, one of the better wrestlers in the division, formerly in the division, I guess, if he's back up to light heavyweight. He'd have to cut off both legs and an arm to make lightweight. So that's what it takes to keep Gastelum down, but it is possible. Neil Magny at welterweight also won a main event at Gastelum with takedowns and transitions, but, what I'm saying, it's not impossible. It's certainly possible, though. A lot of clinch fighting early in the Till fight, and Gastelum had that lower stature that helped him in that position, but Till had a lot of success pushing him around at times, which was surprising. Gastelum was throwing some nice low kicks in that matchup. He needs more of that, especially when you saw how Cannonier was having success against Hermansson with those low kicks, really taking away his lead base and kind of disrupting him. Gastelum will throw a solid right jab. He does better when he throws in combinations. He just wasn't throwing against Till. Again, that was that post-title fight letdown scenario, and he fought cautiously. Gastelum has power. He knows how to finish, especially as a fighter that has been finished on multiple occasions. You have to keep that into account. Gastelum's the type of guy where he can put you in a spot, he will crank it up and get you out of there. As I said, Kelvin was coming off that post-title fight letdown scenario, and not only that, it was a fucking war. 5 rounds against Adesanya where he nearly got finished, and just a brutal scenario there. He underperformed against Till. Till fought well. Hermansson, on the flip side, not coming off a title fight, but you remember the last time he fought, he was in Denmark, so pretty much home, and he got smashed, he got finished. That's a crushing defeat, and you have to wonder to yourself, has he recovered from that? That's a big loss for him. going beyond, look for Kelvin to defend the takedowns, especially early on, and that's going to be crucial. And if he either stays vertical or get back up, scramble back up. Don't let Hermansson cement you down on the ground and go to work. I don't think he'll be able to keep him down. He kept Diakiese down, but I think Diakiese started to fold up in that fight at times. He was taking some damage. It just didn't look good. I think Kelvin's in a better spot here. I think Kelvin's going to rebound. Kelvin's not the type of guy who's going to lose 3 in a row, I don't think. Look for Kelvin to force those striking exchanges and put some volume on Hermansson, back him up, and eventually clip him. And my prediction is Kelvin Gastelum to defeat Jack Hermansson by TKO. We move now to the main event of the evening, and finally, probably most likely, we will see a new flyweight champion as the rematch. Deiveson Figueiredo, 18-1-0, takes on the 28-6 Joseph Benavidez. Benavidez, the underdog at plus 175. Figueiredo minus 210 coming in as the favorite. Now, this is the second time they fought, and COVID nearly derailed this fight. Figueiredo having testing positive. He has since tested negative and has been cleared as of right now. As we mentioned before, Pantoja has been tabbed as a possible fighter to slip in here if we have a weight issue, or COVID, but they want to crown a champion, and they're going to do their best to make sure that happens. Now, the first fight transpired on February 29th in 2020. Shocking. It seems like it was forever ago, a different world. It really was a different world when that went down. Second round TKO loss for Benavidez. Figueiredo missed weight. There was a headbutt involved, and ultimately we left the fight going, we still need a new champion. Figueiredo had won 3 in a row. Or has won 3 in a row. After that first career loss, he beat Pantoja, Elliott, and then Benavidez. 3 wins were former title challengers, all very effectively, very dominant wins. For Benavidez, he had won 3 in a row, beating Alex Perez, Dustin Ortiz, and Jussier Formiga before the loss to Figs. He's 9-2 over his last 11 fights. Now, Figueiredo, 1 inch taller, 3 inch reach advantage. He's younger by 3 years. And as we said, he needs to make weight, or he might not be in this fight. He won't get another. If he blows this again and doesn't make weight, he will not get another opportunity. They will not stick him in there and risk him winning by knockout. They're going to stick Pantoja in there and say, hey, if you make weight, maybe you're going to be fighting for a title, son. So be ready. In the first fight, Benavidez landed more strikes, 46-25. Figueiredo had 1 takedown. Benavidez landed him in both rounds, 31-15 and 15-10, even though he got knocked out in round 2. We had a bit of a tentative start. Figueiredo cut a kick, looked for a takedown. He nearly had an armbar. We had a good scramble back and forth. Benavidez got out of it. They got back to their feet, and they went to work. Joe was pressing forward, sliding into the pocket with the short shovel hook, and then firing the right hand over top with mixed results. Figueiredo was looking at counter strike. He clearly had the edge in power, but Joe was landing some good strikes himself. We had a good swing at the end of the first round. They were both going back and forth. Benavidez opening up, and Figueiredo starting to press forward as well. Figueiredo appeared to be slowing down at the end of the first round. He appeared to be backed off a little bit and kind of looking for those big shots, but not really engaging in between them. And obviously, did he have a rough cut? Did he try and get down and just couldn't do it? And is that a factor there? That's certainly something worth considering. He was throwing some big hooks and uppercuts overall, again, trying to time and catch Joe as he came in. Joe was leading with his head a lot, and that created an issue. But before we even talk about that issue, it was giving Figueiredo a target who was kind of sitting back, as he did against Pantoja, and trying to catch him coming forward with just big strikes. What we did get is that unintentional headbutt. As they came together, boom, they crack Figueiredo. Joe's busted open, clearly concussed, took the worst of it, and shortly thereafter, Figueiredo lands a massively devastating right hand that puts him down and finishes that fight. Joe, as it was cut open, he looked stunned after the headbutt. He was hurt. His hands were low. He was backing up, not putting up much defense, and got knocked out. Figueiredo, kudos for capitalizing on that scenario. Tough loss for Benavidez. It is what it is. We're running it back. Now, you could argue, and I think it's a pretty sound argument, Benavidez was winning that fight with volume and activity. But he was clearly open to getting hit, and he was eating some big shots, and that was absolutely concerning. Figueiredo was looking to do damage with those big shots. He was countering as Joe came in. That strategy is concerning over a 5-round fight because you're going to find yourself falling behind. You're going to lose a couple of rounds, and if you slow down, your timing's off, you're going to throw less and less, and if your opponent finds that opportunity to push forward and engage, and you're not throwing those counters and those big punches to keep him at least back temporarily, you're going to fall behind even further. My concern here is for Figueiredo, if he doesn't get that big break, and we get into rounds 3, 4, and 5, will he start to slow down more and not be able to land those bigger strikes? We've seen him in other fights be hellaciously aggressive in the later parts of the fight, and that's never been an issue. But Benavidez pushes a pretty torrid pace, and with this being a championship fight, is Figueiredo concerned and not going to push his pace to avoid gassing out? That's another concern we have to look at here. Benavidez overall is a pretty smart guy. He's a veteran fighter. He's pretty resourceful. How does he adjust coming into this? He needs to avoid leading with his head. That's the first fucking thing he needs to look at here. Do not lead with your head, both to avoid another clash of heads and a problem, but also avoid giving Figueiredo a big old target to counter strike at. You know, set it up better. Jab, jab, jab. Work your way into the pocket. Don't be so, predictable. He also, don't stretch out. He also needs to throw those leg kicks as well. They can take away Figueiredo's base, make it harder for him to explode and throw those big power punches. And ultimately, if Joe can avoid taking that damage, he should be able to stretch this fight out into rounds 3, 4, and 5, where he should be more effective, where Figueiredo should be a little less effective. Figueiredo, if he makes weight, will most likely be a little more active in this fight, but I think he's still going to look for the knockout. He's still going to look for those big shots. He's not just going to pick away at Benavidez, and he's got to be mindful of Benavidez's volume. Benavidez, I think, should be able to outwork him with combination striking, be a little more cautious, more leg kicks to cut down on his mobility, and again, stretch this fight out. I think I said this last time, this very well could be Joseph Benavidez's last title shot. He's getting this opportunity because it's an unusual scenario. He knows he can't just rush in there and match power for power because it did cost him. I think we see some nice adjustments from Benavidez. I think he gets the bulk of the rounds. I think we stretch this fight out beyond round 2 and gets into 3, 4, and 5. And my prediction is Joseph Benavidez to defeat Deiveson Figueiredo and become the new UFC flyweight champion. I think Benavidez does it by decision. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 172. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. This is the end of 3 events in 8 days. It's been one fucking hell of a ride. Getting through these 8 days, a lot of fights. As I'm recording this, I have not completely, UFC on ESPN 13 is just starting the main card, so I can't tell you exactly what's going down, but hopefully my intro, I'm going to record my intro last, if that makes sense, so it will actually transpire after the event has completed, so I'll be able to give you a little rundown on things. But either way, thank you very much for tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter, @KO_predictions, purchase the bet packs. And as I said, and I continue to talk about it, I am winding down my channel. August 1st will be my last show, Holmes versus Aldana. Thank you very much for all the memories and all the support. And hey, enjoy the fights, guys. We'll talk to you in the not too distant future. Take care. Hi.